If there's one thing kids love to complain about, it's school. Unless you're a fucking nerd, a good-for-nothing nerd. The type of person who'd rather do an entire math package in one sitting as opposed to watching the school football championship. Totally not projecting at all. While it's true I'm not as big of a school hater as your average Joe, one thing that we could probably agree on is the absolute pointlessness of a lot of the subjects and the topics they cover. I'll go more in depth in my ranking in part 2, but a good thing about these subjects that one could consider less practical to everyone is that most of them are not mandatory. Keyword most. These non-required classes are where we find some of the most bizarre ones, which is the focus of this video. I give you the 5 weirdest school subjects I could find. The last one in particular, hoo boy. To start, we have an Arctic survival class. This one is primarily taught in Greenland. It teaches skills such as building shelters, hunting, and navigating the wilderness according to STEMeducationguide.com. Now, there's a reason why I think this one deserves the bottom spot, as it's certainly not the most impractical class you could take. I mean, they teach you how older civilizations survived the wilderness in history. Why not teach you how to survive today? However, the strange thing about it to me is how you would implement it into a typical school curriculum. For one, is it a class that's taught strictly indoors, outdoors, or a mixture of both? If it's just you sitting in a desk learning survival facts, that could be both boring and less practical. After all, you can't fully say you know how to survive in the wilderness if you don't actually have hands-on experience. It would be like if shop class made you do a whole bunch of paperwork on how the machines worked, but didn't let you actually use them. Being strictly outdoors could lead to problems as well though. How would it work as a year-long class? I know we're in Greenland, but it's not like they have equal amounts of snow on the ground at all times. What if one semester has to do all their lessons when the snow has melted? Another problem you could encounter is the scheduling. If the class is outside, it would likely involve travel, as you can't really hunt or navigate the wilderness from your school's front yard. Well, I guess you could at mine. We have a parking lot that's as messy and muddy as a swamp. Anyways, having to travel would mean you may waste a lot of class time on transportation, or have to do the class work while on the transportation. I'm sure that'd be a bigger annoyance than Skibbity Toilet, trying to write shit down while in a moving vehicle. You'd also have to worry about making it to your next class on time, and successfully transition back into a school environment without losing focus. This may seem like a simple thing to do on the surface, but picture yourself hunting an animal only to do a huge math test right after. Would you really be able to focus entirely? Next up, we have winemaking class in Italy. I'm all for this class actually. And no, it's not because I'm an alcoholic. I'm still committed to never touching it. The first concern you may have with this class is minors drinking alcohol. With the class being in Italy though, I don't think it's much of a problem there, as kids are allowed to drink little bits of wine from an early age. This is done to ease them into alcohol and teach them about drinking it in moderation. You could even implement something like that into the class, transforming it into a partial health class. It may seem counterintuitive to teach kids about the dangerous effects of alcohol while potentially giving it to them, but it's not like they're getting hardcore liquor. They're getting a drink that's far more normalized in their culture. With how big their winemaking industry is, the class would be extremely practical job-wise as well. The only problems I could foresee this class having is if it expanded to other parts of the world where alcohol is far less normalized. Cough cough the US. All in all, the class does not seem that out of place in a normal curriculum, especially if you include the health part. And I mean, hey, home ec class exists. Next up, before we pivot to college courses, where you will truly find the most mental fucking classes, at least they're all non-mandatory. Chess class in Armenia is not. however. You're fucking forced to take it. It's viewed as essential as fucking math and language studies. The reasoning for this is the critical thinking skills required to play the game. This does justify it a little more, but I still have worries. For one, how is it graded? Is it graded based on simply how well you can memorize and articulate strategies, or is it based on how much you win? It has to be at least a little based on the latter. You can't really prove your strategy is good unless you win with it. What if you have a chess grandmaster in your class that can break through all of your strategies? You're fucked. I'll tell you one thing though. I'd rather be forced to play chess than be forced to partake in gym, which has the same grading issue. At least in chess, you're not at constant threat of being injured by a ball flying at Mach 80, or an angry jock who treats a game of dodgeball as a bigger deal than the Super Bowl. Though that's not to say chess players can't get angry. Now we advance to college courses. The most wild thing about a lot of these isn't even the class itself, but the fact that people will willingly pay for them, or beg their parents to pay for them. Imagine this. You just got into the prestigious college of your dreams, and your parents are so overjoyed that they decide to host a huge party to celebrate, and agree to pay for your whole tuition. They then find out that you selected zombie and apocalypse studies as your major, and proceed to disown you. It'd be a genius move for Elon Musk's kid that despised him. They would drain their father of a lot of his seemingly endless cash, maybe even more so than Twitter did, and they would be free to assume a new identity, severed from their father's legacy. Otherwise, though, you'd just be turned into an orphan, all because you were scared of a fake zombie apocalypse. Actually, maybe your parents were glad to give up money to disown you, because you're probably a conspiracy theorist if you took this class. Anyways, the class itself seems to involve simply watching and analyzing various zombie movies and shows, such as Walking Dead and Zombieland. I would assume if you were interested in zombies enough to take this class, though, you'd have already seen and thoroughly examined the themes of Walking Dead. So you're essentially paying to do a rewatch of a show and argue about your opinions with people. Dude, you can do that for free on social media anytime. There's plenty of other courses where you just analyze movies as well, but most of them deal with more pressing issues that would be easier to expand into other assignments. Even a Star Wars-based course at Queen's University is more practical. You learn the psychology behind Jedi mind tricks, effectively making this course double as a psychology one, and you analyze destiny, dualism, fatherhood, and fascism. Now it's time for number one on the list, celebrity courses. Not courses taught by celebs, no. Ones that are entirely dedicated to a celebrity. I've found three primary types. The first type is the most common, which talk about the celebrities' works and their themes or contributions to society. For example, there was a Taylor Swift course that ran for 10 weeks solely about the topics of her music, including social media, feminism, revenge, and romance. These are very similar to the movie analysis ones, but are even more flawed. This is because mainly focusing on one person's perspective likely isn't going to let you dive deep into a lot of the topics. With movies, you have a lot of characters to draw from that have opposing views. You don't get that with one person. It's very similar to how you shouldn't only rely on one singular news source to get your information. Like, imagine the disaster that would ensue on Kiesel News if I only used Dexerto for information. Hey, I use discussing film too. This course is also just doomed from the get-go since it focuses on Taylor Swift of all people. I don't care what all her Swifties say. The majority of her music just boils down to, I got broken up with, now I'm sad, fuck you. This is a wider problem in the music industry in general, but I digress. The second type is actually specific to Taylor Swift as far as I'm aware, which is a celebrity law course. Unfortunately, it doesn't sound like it'll talk about how she should get in trouble for the amount of damn emissions her private jet causes. It is run by a Swiftie after all. I'm sure that even if he wanted to talk shit about Taylor Swift, his fellow Swifties would kill him for his betrayal. To be fair, I'd rather be ripped limb from limb and experience another catheter before enduring the punishment of Swifties. Don't ask about the catheter. That's a story for another time, as Miles Kanata would say. The course seems to actually deal with entertainment law, such as copyright, contract, and trademark law, and will use Taylor Swift as examples. Assuming the university where this is offered already has a law course, I definitely don't understand its purpose. The only benefit I could see is if they made it cheaper than the normal law course due to Taylor Swift being involved. The third and final type is the most brain-dead one of them all, which is a course that just talks about the person themselves. The biggest one I could find in this category was a course on David Beckham that teaches you about his haircuts, marriage, and him making women wet. Honestly, I have to respect whoever founded this course. They're not trying to sugarcoat the course's importance whatsoever. They just want to meet other David Beckham simps. I hope by the end of this, I'm not seen as being against the idea of unique classes. I wish my school offered a lot more options. Hell, it doesn't even offer law or computer science, and we have to fight tooth and nail. What's the meaning of that expression anyway?
Apparently it comes from fighting like a wild beast who didn't have weapons, so they had to use only their teeth and their nails. I guess that makes sense. The more you know.
To keep music and creative writing. In a perfect world, every little possible niche should be available for a student to learn more about. It's just that our world is not perfect. Absolutely mind-shattering statement, I know. Schools don't all have the budget to offer some courses that should even be mandatory. That's why it's stupid when the schools that do have the extra funding use it on courses as weird as some of these. Who am I kidding? This video has no moral behind it. I'm just jealous that my school doesn't offer tree climbing as a fucking class. I did get to take cryptozoology as part of communications though. More on that on part 2.